In 2010, a spiritual life coach that I had hired told me that if I wanted a fresh start in my life, I needed to empty a drawer in one of my dressers and leave it empty always. I've had many fresh starts in my life. I've been married and divorced. I've moved 12 times in 30 years, and each time I needed to start again. As an elementary school teacher, every single school year is a fresh start with a new group of students. So this will be my 26th fresh start in my career. And as a teacher, I've also had to move classrooms numerous times, 12 times in 26 years to be exact. But more importantly, a few years after my divorce in 2008, I was blessed to have a fresh start with a new partner. And after a couple of years of being together, we decided to move in together and blend our families. But at the same time, I was struggling with a really contentious divorce and custody battle from my ex, and it was making it really, really difficult to enjoy the new beginning that I had been gifted. Eventually, we ended up buying a home together, and that was another fresh start. But at the same time that we bought our home, my sister and I moved our parents into an independent living facility because they were getting older and wanted to feel more safe. The facility was really close to the home that I had just moved into, so I was really excited and a little nervous to have my parents so close by, not quite knowing what the new dynamic was going to be like. But not long after that, my mom started to suffer some cognitive decline, and I realized that the dynamic of our relationship was changing. So I was no longer able to see her as my anchor for support. I was becoming hers. And that was something new that I hadn't experienced before and didn't quite know what to do with. Not too long after that, the pandemic began, and as a teacher, I had to learn how to do my job from home remotely, looking at 24 students on a screen. That was brand new to me, and something that I struggled with. During that time, too, my children were both in high school. My son was a senior, and my daughter was just entering high school, and I had to learn how to advocate for them to make sure that their needs were getting met. As for the majority of families in the world, this time was really chaotic, and if it wasn't bad enough that we were struggling to make sure that we all stayed healthy, it felt like everything that could happen happened. So my mother started to decline really quickly, and my older sister and I had different ideas of how to advocate for her care and what her care should look like. And my sister kept on challenging my capacity to assist in the care of our mother. And eventually that was the demise of our relationship as sisters. It was very sad, and I don't want to share much of that story right now. But that being said, I had to redefine my role in the family, figure out how this would now work, still being close with my parents and loving them and caring for them, but not being able to communicate as a whole unit any longer. Also at this time, my stepdaughter, who was 18, decided that it was time for her to move out and start a life on her own in the middle of the world falling apart. So that was a huge loss to our family. About a year or so after that, and it's really hard because those handful of years are a jumbled mess in my mind. So, if I don't get the chronological timeline exactly perfect, I'm sure you'll forgive me. But not too long after that, I lost my mother from complications of dementia. And it was interesting because I ended up having a spiritual awakening, and I found myself spending a lot of time in nature, noticing birds and squirrels around me all the time. And I guess I was feeling and looking for her presence around me. I didn't know how to be a daughter without a mom. I still don't know how to be a daughter without a mom. I'm trying to figure that out every single day. But I felt like at that point in time, like that was the apex of so many things being taken from me over the years. Marriage was taken from me. My, family unit was taken from me. My relationship with my sister was taken from me. My security in the world was taken from me, and now my mom. So this spiritual awakening I was having was helping me redefine myself and have a new start as a more spiritual being and connecting to some presence beyond myself. And this emotional new start had kind of permeated so many areas of my life, in my career, to my friendships, from my relationship with my partner, to my relationship with my children. I kind of forced myself to create change in a lot of areas in my life, one of them being the way that I showed up as a teacher. I became more focused on the emotional well-being of my students and teaching them how to take care of their friendships and their emotional needs became a priority for me. I also began to become a more laid-back mother. I was allowing my children some more time to explore who they were in their own time and their own way without making my opinions or my concerns theirs. I began to be more of an observer in my relationship with my partner, and I was noticing how my style of engagement was kind of contributing to some of the problems that we were having, our relationship struggles, and that it really wasn't all him, although some of it was him. He was struggling with his daughter having left, and some other things that were going on. Anyway, eventually my son, we're a few years on now, so my son left for college, actually earlier this year, and that left me having to redefine my role as his mom. I had to leave room for him to struggle. I had to leave room for him to plan. I had to leave room for him to solve problems and carve out his own path away from home. Because if I kept, being physically available to him at all times, he would not find his own success. And this was a really hard start. I kicked and screamed my way through it. But now I'm really grateful. He is doing fine, and he has a lovely girlfriend as an adult, and for the first time he's in a relationship where he feels, with somebody that's not his mother, where he feels supported, and he can go to her for comfort and nurturing, and I'm so grateful for that. But once again, that's causing me to have to morph into a different version of myself as a mother, and I'm doing it, but it's definitely not easy. And to top it all off, I've also recently understood that I'm an ADHDer, which means I am autistic and have ADHD. And that's caused me to start my life over, and to look at my life with a new, to look at my past with a new context. So, all of the things that I've just shared with you, all of the times where I had to start over, now I understand that the whole process, the whole experience, and then the whole process of doing that, I was doing like I was struggling in a way I didn't even understand until now. So all that being said, these years have seen me experiencing a lot of loss, which means that I've gone through a lot of grief. Grief over the loss of my first marriage and the way that the dreams that I had for my children and for what my life was going to be. Grief over the loss of my relationship with my sister, and grief over the loss of my mother, and grief over the loss of our once full house with 3 children, now that both my stepdaughter and my son have moved on. And eventually my daughter will be going to college, and there will be another loss to have to, pull myself through. But most currently, and as I mentioned a moment ago, I'm kind of like grieving the identity that I thought I had before I learned about my neurodivergence. And one of the traits of being autistic and having ADHD is, well, for some people, it's that we can like hyper focus on subjects, and we can also have special interests. And these like areas of focus can change over time. So now, where I am in my life, after all this grieving that I've been through and all of these losses that I've experienced, my focus has ended up being on me. I realized how much I've gained from like all of these fresh starts, and I wanted to learn more about myself with this new identity as neurodivergent. In January of 2024, it's August right now, I started this YouTube channel kind of to help me explore myself a little more deeply and to see if I could learn some new skills and like foster a new creative outlet, another fresh start, so to speak. So what started out as grocery hauls and day in the life videos has kind of morphed into more of a journey learning about who I am and who I am in my mid-50s as a new empty nester, who I am as a partner, as a teacher, as a woman approaching retirement in a few years, and as an autistic ADHDer. There's a lot of new places to explore in my life. Being autistic, I realized that I've always been focused on knowing myself more deeply. It's always been like my reason for being. From the time I was a kid, all my journal writing, all my drawing, all my staring off into space, all of my thumb sucking, all of my nail biting has all been me reflecting and looking at myself. I've always tried to understand how I'm showing up in the world and how the world affects me and my sense of well-being. So here I am, I've come to YouTube, and I'm allowing myself a fresh start as a content creator while I continue being a teacher and a mom and an empty nester and a partner and a lifelong learner, because this is bringing me a sense of joy and of happiness after all of these, struggles and trials that I've been through in my life. And in the next 5 years, I'll likely be getting ready to retire from teaching. And even though I'm really looking forward to like closing that chapter of my life as an employee, I still want to engage with my life, and I still want to be I still want to reflect, and I still want to learn, and I still want to share my knowledge and my process of becoming who I am. I still want to share all of that. I still want to like let people know in real time who I intend to be. So YouTube, in my opinion, is like an ideal place for me to continue doing this, for me to continue this process. I'm loving growing a community and engaging with others and learning from people that I'd never otherwise have the opportunity to meet and learn from. This fresh start has got me thinking, though, about all the other areas of my life where I could use some freshening up. So I want to return to my art practice. As a child, I was always drawing and painting and coloring, and then when I got into college, I had to get my teaching credential, I had to specialize in one subject area. So I chose to specialize in fine arts. And so in the late 90s, I reignited a passion for my creativity, and I learned about sketching, I learned about painting, I learned about creating mixed media art pieces, I learned how to sculpt. I learned so many things, and I want to get back to that. I want to fuel my creative fire. I also want to create new money habits for myself. My parents didn't spend a lot of time teaching me about financial literacy, and I've kind of just done what I can with what little I know. And now that I'm older and I have, well, I'm approaching retirement years, I want to make sure that I've got what I need. So I want a fresh financial start. I also want to return to some fitness routines. I've kind of let that go on the back burner maybe in the last year or so. But at this age, it's terribly important that I maintain my muscle mass and my strength to protect my bones and protect my hormones and make sure that I have enough years to continue this process of becoming. Like, I don't want it to end before I've become everything I want to be. So I will spend more time with body weight exercises and walking and taking care of my physical health. I'm grateful to be very healthy in general, but I want it to stay that way. Eventually, I want a fresh career start after I retire, and I've had dreams for over a decade of starting some kind of coaching business. I don't have a fully formed idea of what that would look like, but because I've been an educator and because I've been a nurturer my whole life, and because I've gone through this spiritual awakening, I think I have, and because I've come to understand that I am neurodivergent, I think I can create something out of that. I want to reignite my relationship with my partner. We are fine and we have a healthy relationship, but we both work hard and we both focus a lot on our work and then on our exhaustion after work. And we need to be doing more fun things together and getting out in the world together. And I want a fresh start there. I also want to learn to embrace my neurodivergence. I want to learn everything I can about what it means to be autistic and have ADHD and how that shows up in my, and I almost ate the microphone, and how that shows up in my life at this, in midlife. I want to learn how my interactions with people, I want to learn how, I can't even formulate the thought. I lived the first half of my life not knowing this about myself, and I want to live the second half of my life knowing everything I can about this part of me. And I also want to start embracing my age. So I want to own it. I want to, and I still don't know how I feel about this yet, but I am thinking about just letting my hair go gray. It's been, right now it's colored, but I've been playing around with that idea. I see so many women who have allowed their hair to be gray, and they're beautiful and they shine and there's a glow about them, and I think I might be ready to embrace that, but I'm not making any promises yet. I think that although I've gone through so many trials in my life that feel like they suck the life out of me at times, I learned that my resilience is not something that I should take for granted, because it's that resilience that's allowed me to reach this space that I'm in right now, this space of clarity and a real deepening joy for my life and for my future and for the rest of who I'm going to become. That resilience to keep starting over after every fall and after every setback reminds me that, like, there's that pattern of life, that there's always going to be opportunity ahead of me. Every time I fell down, I got back up again. Every time something stopped working, something new started working. And I should embrace all of those options that are ahead of me and not just, succumb to the sadness or the frustration that shows up when we've struggled. My mother retired in her mid-60s at the onset of her cognitive decline. She was actually forced into retirement. And at that time, she sat down and she picked up knitting needles in one hand and the remote control in the other hand, and sat with a box of cookies or a pint of ice cream and watched the Home and Garden Network. I have forgiven her for that, and I understand why now she had to do that. Now that I have some insight about neurodivergence, I understand that she likely was autistic herself, and as a woman who was born in the early 40s, there was no way that anybody would have ever understood that about her. So that being said, she spent her whole life masking, and about 22 years ago, my father had a stroke that left him disabled, and she had spent the last 20 years of her life being his caregiver. So I have a feeling that she was just completely burnt out, suffering autistic burnout, suffering life burnout, and that's all she could do was to sit down and enjoy some cookies and knitting a very long scarf. I say that with love, Mom. But she didn't give herself the chance to find out, to find her voice and to figure out what else she could become besides being an employee and a mom and a wife. She didn't get that chance. She was so tired, and she had suffered so much, and eventually she died. So I am going to give myself the fresh start that my mom didn't get to have, the one that she really deserved. I wanted her to explore the things that she loved when she was a younger woman. I wanted her to
volunteer at the library. I wanted her to go back to studying interior design. I wanted her to take long walks and have picnics in the park and go shopping for fun things and find sales at the store. And she was an artist also. She loved color and design and texture, and I wanted her to find all of that. So although those are not my interests, I am going to continue this process of new starts in honor of my mother. I love her and I miss her, and I know she'll be watching.